Hi,
Okay.
everybody. It's me, Linda Marcus Smith, with my interviews. Today, you are so lucky, or call it blessed, whatever. We have the amazing comedian out of Long Island, and I want to read you the introduction that he sent me. You will love him. Stay tuned. Stay for the whole thing. Share it. Okay, enough with the promo. 1 second here. I'm going to read the intro. Alan Salzbank, that's this person over here. Alan Salzbank blends sharp observational humor with self-deprecating wit, tackling everyday absurdities from family life to cultural quirks. With a Seinfeld-like sensibility and a touch of Nate Bargatze's laid-back charm, Alan's punchy, family-friendly comedy has resonated with audiences at Dangerfields. That noise is my Peter element. Has resonated with audiences at Dangerfields, the Comedy Cellar, across Long Island, and in South Florida. His routines highlight the ironies of modern life, leaving crowds laughing at the relatable and the ridiculous. And I know for a fact he's a heck of a nice mensch of a guy, and he's so funny. We were just talking before this how every joke he has is like a mini comedy set. You've got to follow him. You've got to get out and see him. But let's talk to him right now. The one, the only, Alan Salzbank. Yay! Woo!
Thank you, Linda. That's the first applause I've gotten in the last 6 months. Thank you very much. So nice
Thank
to
you.
be here.
Thank you so much for coming on. Now, Alan, I know that the style of interview you prefer is different from what I do. I just go through your life. So, with that being said, why don't we start with little Alan? Little Alan growing up. Where did you grow up?
I grew up on Long Island. Uh, haven't
And
moved that far from my original home in the last 70 years. And I grew up with a lazy eye.
you did.
So I was a very scrawny little kid, terrible at sports because I had no depth perception. But I did gravitate towards humor. My mother was extremely funny. My dad was a businessman, and I followed my dad into business for 45 years. And it wasn't until recently that I realized that I probably should have followed my mother as a comedian.
Just out of curiosity, since you mentioned that, at what age did you start comedy? And then we'll go back in time again.
Yeah, I started in right before COVID. Actually, in I had not retired yet, but I was sort of stepping back from business, and I wanted to have something to do. And I've always questioned whether I could make it as a comedian. So it wasn't until I was, I guess, 64 years old that I started comedy by taking a few classes, and I'm enjoying it quite a bit. I love it.
Yeah. That's great. I'm glad that somebody else started late like me and also wishes they would have started earlier as I do. Thank you. We're both in the same
Absolutely,
team.
absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, let's go back to little Alan. You grew up on Long Island. What city were you from?
Roslyn,
Oh
which
yeah.
okay,
Okay, no wonder we were talking about the great Wendy Liebman because
yes,
that's where
absolutely.
she's from.
Yep, absolutely. She went to high school actually with my sister-in-law, who I'm gonna just let Wendy know. My sister-in-law is a lot younger than I am. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. Roslyn is a cute little town.
yep, it really is. I wasn't in Roslyn proper. I was sort of on the outskirts. Um, but that's where I grew up, and my wife, as I mentioned, my sister-in-law, my wife was in Roslyn proper.
Very nice. Very nice. So in school, you were telling me personally, I know Alan. Alan, I know you personally, and I know that you had achieved things and you have certain talents physically, and I find that so unique. And could you share that?
Yeah, sure. I was, as I say, I wasn't, with no depth perception. I was terrible at sports like, football and baseball, but I actually was a pretty good gymnast. I went to the University of Pennsylvania, and I'm proud to say I was the Ivy League champion in the still rings back in 1976, a long time ago, and also the last time I touched a ring.
I never know when you're laughing, so I just laugh whenever you talk because
Right.
it
No,
makes
I'm usually, if my lips are moving, I'm usually joking, but it's generally just an exaggeration of what's really true.
that's the best because I'm more of a factual, I say everything that's true, but when you exaggerate, then it becomes funny.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love the craft of putting together jokes and figuring out like, okay, this is something that really happened, and that little kernel can be exaggerated and added to, embellished upon to make it funny.
I like
That's
that.
I love that craft.
I love that. Can you give people an example of a little kernel that became a great joke or a great bit?
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. I talk about how I was bad at sports, but I did join my high school wrestling team, which is true. And I was a terrible wrestler, which is also true. But the exaggeration part is how I'll tell people that as a junior in high school, I set a record. And people get excited. He must have been a good wrestler. And I say, well, no, I was, I set a record by being pinned in 6 seconds. And I don't know if that's true, but I did get pinned. I actually once got pinned by the reigning state champion, and it was a very quick match. Um, but instead of saying that it was the state champion, I tell everybody that it was Susie, his little sister from Syosset. And so that's the exaggeration, and I find that makes it a little bit funnier.
I
Uh,
love that. Thank you for that. That's a quick little lesson for all of us on here who are comedians.
right.
Thank you for sharing that. So you grew up and did anybody see your value as a little child growing up through high school? Did they see your value in being funny and try to encourage it?
Not so much. I mean, I took a few classes. I actually remember, I was as small as I am now. I was real. I didn't, I shot up in high school to like 5'4". Um, but I don't remember whether it was, I think it might have been my sophomore year in high school. I did a routine. We basically did a cover of the Abbott and Costello, who's on first. But I did it. I was the Costello character, and the Abbott character was um, uh, a guy from the football team that was at least twice my size in every direction. He was a lot heavier than me and probably almost twice as tall as I was back then. And it was great. I loved it. And I've always tried to use my creative mind in the comedy area, writing parody songs. I actually, this is maybe interesting. Back in 1991, the economy was in pretty bad shape. We were going through a recession. And at that time, there was a cologne by Calvin Klein called Obsession Cologne. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it was very popular. It was like maybe the number one or number two selling cologne back then. And I was thinking about it. I said, with the way the economy is, it should really be recession. So I have this is a I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if I could get it in focus here one way or the other, probably not. But anyway, I came up with this cologne, maybe this way. No, I don't know. Ah, there it is. This is recession cologne. And I figured, that made sense. I had it produced, and then I came up with a bunch of marketing ideas for it. The cologne is its slogan is the economy stinks, you shouldn't have to. And there were a bunch of cute little things that had an insert, sort of like the pet rock back then.
Yeah.
It was an eau de cologne, but O was spelled OWE. It was produced by Market Decline. It had that little graph on it. And it was actually, I mean, it was picked up by the AP, and it made it into just about every publication in the United States. It was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. It was in the New York Times Magazine section. It was named, oddly enough, it was on Entertainment Tonight. John Tesh was telling everybody about this cologne the day after Father's Day. Right. So it was too late to sell any that way. And then at the end of the year, the day after Christmas, it was named the best new product of 1991 by Parade magazine. And it was great. It was, I was interviewed, I was picked up by a stretch limousine and interviewed for a half hour on CNBC. And I had my 15 minutes of fame. And it outsold Calvin Klein at Bloomingdale's that first week. So I thought I was ready for the cologne business, but it didn't work out that way. But I do have a great videotape of all these performances, all these appearances, and all these mentions on TV, and all the clippings from different magazines and newspapers. It was amazing, a lot of fun.
If you send that clip to me, I'll share it because that is hysterical and it's a great, I would love to have that to share with people.
Yeah, that's actually on YouTube. If you search recession cologne,
Okay.
it comes up in different orders. But John Tesh is on Entertainment Tonight showing it. It shows the interview with me on CNBC and a show called The Dolans back then. And it was a real trip. And I love doing that type of thing. I've been very, very fortunate that, I haven't had to do these things to make a living. But it was very interesting to see how the marketing of this with free advertising. So we sold about 10,000 bottles of cologne, and then the free advertising petered out, and I went back to my day job.
It's hysterical. What other things have you done in your life that you want to mention
Um,
in the
you
trajectory of your life into and through comedy? Tell us everything about you. That's what I'm good at asking.
okay. Well, I'm the president of my temple here on Long Island in Port Washington. And it's a sort of a figurehead position more than anything else. But I've been that for about 30 years. And the
Wow.
only requirement in the job was to introduce the rabbi. So I always tried to come up with something a little bit humorous, for at least the last 20 years doing this. And that's what encouraged me a little bit to get into comedy. A lot of people, came up to me saying that, they love the way I present myself, and, I should really explore the comedy area. And I decided, why not? Why not?
That would be a great book title. I mean, like a great book of all the quips, How to Introduce Your Rabbi by
Yeah, right.
Alan.
Well, that's not a bad. That could be at least the subtitle of the book, right? Yeah.
I'd like to see a list of all the funny introductions you did.
Yeah, no, I have some pretty good ones, I must say. I think at least they got good reaction from the congregation. I actually am, oddly that you say that, because of the craft. there's, I don't know how many people realize that there's stage performance and there's writing for the stage and writing for the page. And a lot of my humor is, um, unless I punch it up, which I try to do, um, I can get 5 minutes out of an hour, uh, out of an hour comedy bit, because 55 minutes of the hour are more storytelling like, which doesn't work as well on stage, but it works well for the page. So I am in the process of trying to write a book. And by the way, the title of the book, or the working title, is The Funniest Book Ever Written by Alan Salzbank, which oddly enough is the only book ever written by Alan Salzbank. But I figured I could try it that way and see what happens.
Well, your comedy is recession proof.
Yeah, yeah, it's like I say, it's not easy to make money as a comedian.
Oh,
At least that's what I'm seeing. I guess obviously the top echelon makes some money, but I don't know about us little peons. Um, I mean, I told you a story. I don't know if it's worth repeating. That when I was in money management for 45 years. Uh, and I made a nice living, but I don't think I was particularly good at it. And the way I describe it, and this is a little bit of the exaggeration that I was talking about, when I took the Long Island Railroad into the city, I don't believe that I was the best money manager in the particular car that I was in, right? But now that when I take the train, I'm probably the best comedian on the entire train. It's all 10 cars. And it's not because I'm a good comedian, it's because most comedians can't afford the fare into the city. So,
that's so funny. I love that. That's what I'm talking about, you guys. That was a comedy bit in so short words. Every single joke he does has its own built-in callback.
right.
Isn't that what you do? I mean,
I definitely try to do that. I tell people up front uh, that I'm a terrible money manager. And then the last bit that I generally do, after a 20-minute set, is I describe how I met a guy on the train, and I mean, hoping this is funnier when I do it on stage. But the callback is, I'm on the train, and I'm bumming a seat off a guy on the subway, and at first I don't realize that he's a client of mine. Uh, how he is homeless, but actually a client of mine. So that crafting is what I love to do. I actually, if I could give a shout out to one of my mentors, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, who Rob Jaffe. He had this spreadsheet, um, and I still use that to this day, where I'm crafting a bit. It has the number of words, it has the number of laughs per minute, all those things, combined to try and really hone down the performance, to get it to the point where you're getting a laugh every 10 or 15 seconds, rather than waiting. As I say, these stories may be interesting to people, but they're interesting over cocktails, or dinner. They're not that interesting, on stage. People don't want to, you don't want their mind to wander, as they're watching your performance. So
yes. I never saw that spreadsheet. I wonder if it's still around for me to get a copy of it.
no, I could share it with you. I could certainly share it with you.
Thank
Yes.
you. Well, you said you certainly hope that your joke was, you hope it's as funny here as it is on stage. You always make me laugh. I would pay you $1 to tell me every joke you have.
Yeah, that's only a meal per joke.
Yeah, I meant $1 for every each joke, not for the
Oh, I
entire.
see. Okay. Well, now
Yeah,
we're talking.
I that's
Yeah.
because I'm limited on money. But
No, I have a sheet, that I keep on my computer that has, I think the latest count is 956 jokes in there. all written by me. And some are funny and some aren't. But it's funny how if you come back to one, after a year or two, and just the way the world changes and things about yourself change, you can make something that might not have been quite as funny as it was 2 years ago. It might it might resonate better nowadays than it did back then, or certainly a decade ago. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, tell us some other things you've done, accomplished, seen, or so that people get a feel of your entire life. So we've covered growing up a bit
Yeah,
and getting into comedy.
right.
How is let's hear about anything else.
I guess, my biggest accomplishment right now is my two kids and six grandchildren and my lovely wife,
Oh,
who actually doesn't mind getting schlepped to most of my performances. It's we're in this business, we do a lot of we're asked to do bringer shows, and I always have one at least.
oh, a built-in bringer.
Yes, and if my grandchildren turn 18, I might get that number up to two or three, because at least at this point, my grandkids love me.
That's so funny. So now I heard at one point at one of your shows, I heard the scuttlebutt, the gossip, the Alan Salzbank gossip, that you've been known to have quite a few people show up to your shows.
Yeah, I'm really blessed. I'm actually amazed at how through Facebook, and the ability. I did a show in Boca. Man, I'm from Long Island, and I've been to Boca a number of times. But when I put out on Facebook that I was doing a show down there, I have people that went to elementary school with my older brother, people that I did business with, people that went to high school, or that I went to high school with, right my entire life. I had, without really doing any direct, you know, solicitation of people coming to my show, I had, I think, 30 people show up, just randomly, on a weeknight in the middle of January last year. And it was very, very, you know, I was very touched by the fact that so many people came to see me, and I'm even more flabbergasted by people who come to see me multiple times. Because I tell them right up front, hey, you're going to see the same 5 minutes I did last month or last year. Very often, I try and change it up a little bit, and I've been expanding and extending it now so that I have pretty solid half hour of material.
Right.
um, but I'm very flattered by the fact that people come multiple times to see me. It's really, are you sure? You realize that you have to buy a drink when you get there.
I
But
would
they,
personally pay money to hear you do a whole 30 minutes.
well, I'll give you
That's
an
how much I like your
opportunity.
comedy and I like your comedy and I like you and I that's a ticket worth buying.
Thank you so much for saying that. Likewise, by the way, I
Oh,
feel the same way. I know we've worked together generally in an open mic setting, which is not quite the best way to get a feel for a comedian's talent, because they're trying new stuff, or there's no audience participation. So it's really, it's a little bit difficult to use that as a gauge. But certainly, I could see where the audience would, what you do resonates with an audience who's actually paying attention.
I love that. I love that a lot. So what's the best and worst that's happened in your personal life and the best and worst that's happened in your comedy life without naming people's names or clubs or but like you've had to have up, you have a lovely wife and grandchildren and grandchildren, but have you had to overcome adversity? Like how was the pandemic? There, I know you've had to overcome probably bullying because of a lazy eye and being not as tall as other people, but Talk about some things that'll resonate with people that you've overcome in your life.
Yeah, I was very, very lucky not to have been bullied. I think, I mean, was probably a little bit on the goofy looking side because the lazy eye, it's not quite as bad as it used to be. It used to turn in quite a bit. They had no idea how to cure that back then. I think now it's easily curable. It's called amblyopia. Um, but I was very lucky. I don't know if it's because, I was, you know, somewhat funny, I guess, maybe that might have held people off. I was very lucky to have an older brother who defended me, whenever needed. Not that it was needed that often, but so that's part of it. I started off. I went to Hebrew day school or yeshiva, as we call it, through eighth grade, and it was a real culture shock moving into public school in ninth grade. I came from a class of 10 kids. The entire class had 10 kids in it, including myself. And I went to a class of 600.
Jeez.
I was always convinced, just, because I grew up in a bubble, but by me, the best way I describe it is to me, a juvenile delinquent was a kid who didn't finish his homework on time. Um, and here I go into a class where, certainly there was no dress code. People were wearing leather jackets and I was convinced that everybody was a thug, even though they were probably the same as me. Um, I'd look in lockers and I'd see things like, cigarettes, um, you know, yeah, well, non-kosher candy. So I was, always, always very, like on edge a little bit that first year. But, I settled in. I made a lot of friends. I think I mentioned, I don't know if it was before we went on, I actually was a pretty good gymnast. Um, I don't know if that was, I don't want to repeat myself, but
No, say it. You didn't
yeah,
say it here, I don't think.
yeah, I actually went to the University of Pennsylvania and I was the 1976 Ivy League still ring champion. So even though the small body frame and fortunately upper body strength that I got from rope climbing my first year as a gymnast, that served me well. And and in high school the same way. In high school, you know, I became less of a scrawny kid and more a little bit more like a fire plug, I guess. And I had the respect, thank God. People really appreciated the ability to be a gymnast, and I think that I'm sure that helped in encountering any potential bullying. Certainly, I had the respect, thank God, of the athletes in the school. So I didn't have to worry about a football player. Uh, you know, I actually went to prom with three football players and myself in the same limousine. So
Wow.
I had friends on the football team, and as I mentioned, the who's on first. I had friends on the football team. I guess that was the thing that prevented me from being bullied by anybody.
Wow. Did you have any friends in the baseball team because you did the who's on first?
No, 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 not really. I was friendly with the coach.
That's always a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, what things in comedy have since you've done comedy and you and I both started later in life, but in comedy, what's been the most challenging thing you've had to overcome?
Um, I was, certainly the low point for me was finding out that actually I was online waiting to have a monthly meeting, which we had each of us or many of us had a monthly meeting with Rob Chaffee on online, and I was actually online waiting for him for an 8:30 appointment when I got a text saying that he had passed away in his sleep, and that that rocked me for, that was the equivalent, not quite as bad as losing a parent, but that's what it felt like. It was this can't possibly be. How can this person that's been a part of my life for the last 2 or 3 years be gone? So suddenly. It was really devastating to me. And I felt like we were in the middle of really building something, or he, and everybody that was associated with him had the same feeling that how can somebody who's so important to me and shows such concern for my well-being and my advancement as a comedian, how can he be gone? And that was very tough.
That's
Um, I'm lucky, I guess, to have, as I say, a following. It's a small following, but a very dedicated following uh, in comedy. Um, and the good things are, when I do a show, at a quality club like, Dangerfields, which is now Rodney's in the city, or some clubs out here on Long Island, that that I'm able to bring people in. We're actually, I don't know if I could self-promote here a little bit.
yes.
We're actually, I'm doing a show down in Lake Worth, Florida on January 25th, with Bob DeBono. I don't know if you know Bob, but
Never met him, but I've heard such
uh,
great things.
he's hysterical. He's a, I mean, he's a great comedian, aside from this, but he's also a world-class Trump impersonator.
No way.
Yeah, and I'm doing a show with him, and I'm afraid that people are going to see me walk out on stage, and they're going to say, "Wait, I came to see Bob DeBono doing Trump. I didn't expect to see Alan Salzbank doing Anthony Fauci." But I'm not sure where that comes from, but I've heard that a number of times that I look a little bit like Anthony Fauci. So,
Wow, that's incredible. That that could that that could be your opening line.
yeah.
You thought Trump and you got
No, no.
Fauci.
Right, right.
That's so funny. Well, what are some other things that you'd like to share with the audience before we plug your social media and head off to our comedy day and night? I want to make sure that anything in your life and your comedy that you wanted to talk about gets talked about.
Yeah, no, I'm sure I've left things out, but I don't want to bore people too much. If they want to be bored, they could come to one of my shows.
All right. Well, why don't you tell people you're going to be in Lake Worth, Florida, and
Right.
you have a couple of shows coming up, and um, if I get another show going at Rodney's, I want you on it.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be
So
great.
I
Love
had
that.
one, but it was like a military. It was really it turned out to be a fiasco is what it turned out to be. But I learned. So next time
Right, right.
I'll have a better show and I'd want you on it.
Oh, that's so nice of you. Thank you. I mean, one of the drawbacks, or one of the challenges that I face is that I'm a Sabbath observer. So I don't have the ability to do shows Friday nights, and most of the year I have trouble doing shows on Saturday night as well. And that doesn't work too well for a comedian because that's when all the shows tend to be. So I tend to do weekday shows. Although I do have a Sunday show that I mentioned in Lake Worth, actually with Bob DeBono, and a comedian magician named Bob Burr. So we have a show at a new venue. It's a new comedy venue. It's a music venue for many years, but it's a new they're exploring and working with comedy now at a place called the Bamboo Room in Lake Worth, and that's Sunday night on January 25th. And really looking forward to that show. It's a beautiful space, and I think that show is going to be a lot of fun. Um, and then I have a show February 24th. That one's in Delray Beach at the Red Crab. with Jeff Greenberg. I don't know if you know Jeff.
Oh, yes.
I think so. Yeah. So so that show should be a lot of fun also.
Fabulous. And around the city, anytime you get a show, make sure you send me your flyer and I'll share it out there for people because I strongly recommend people come see you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Linda.
Absolutely. I will upload this, of course, to YouTube, you guys, and it'll be there in about an hour, and I'll share it on Facebook, Instagram, if TikTok lets me. But it'll, but thank you so much for coming on. And if you want to do a joke or two right now, or just sign off, whatever you want, however you want it, if you want to just talk to people and pitch why they should have you on one of their shows or come out and see you, why don't you end the show your way, any way you'd like to, Alan?
Well, thank you. I mean, I like to do clean comedy, um, and one of the when I say self-deprecating jokes, one of my favorite jokes is, again, this is quite an exaggeration. Matter of fact, it's not even true, not even close. But I tell people that I tried out for America's Got Talent, and Simon Cowell says, as he normally does, he says, "Why AGT and why now?" I said, "Look, Simon, I'm 70 years old. I just want to prove to my grandkids that if you follow your dreams, sometimes it actually is too late." So I'm hoping it's not too late, and I'm hoping that many people who come to see me can now say to themselves, I remember when Alan was starting out in his early 70s.
At some point, nobody's going to be able to remember anything.
But now my big goal, another goal that I've set for myself, is getting my YouTube subscribers up to 18. So if you want to be number 18, that'd be great. It's very simple. It's just Salzbank Comedy.
Salzbank Comedy.
Right,
Thank
right.
you so much. Anything else you want to say before we end?
No, just thank you very much. This was a pleasure. This was my first online interview since my interview on CNBC because of my cologne.
Did we cover that?
I think we did. I think I held it up, and I don't know if anybody saw it. But by the way, the cologne is available on eBay. I'm not selling it myself anymore, but I think what used to go for $22, you could now get for I think $38 if you find the right spot on eBay.
Oh my goodness. Do you talk about your cologne when you do comedy shows?
I haven't yet, no. I mean, because that again, that's more of a story-like type of thing, which I try to be a little bit more punchy in my comedy. I'm shooting for that, laugh every 10 seconds. And sometimes the laugh comes from me forgetting where I am in my set.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Alan Salzbank. It's been my joy to have you here, and I will share this with everybody until they say stop. Please stop.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Lynn. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now.